The Philadelphia Eagles 2026 regular season schedule has officially been released, and I think the NFL did a lot of favors for the Birds, finally.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. And thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Louie DiBiase. Welcome into this Friday edition of the podcast. On today's episode, we are going to break down the Philadelphia Eagles 2026 schedule from start to finish and tell you why I think the NFL did a lot of favors for this football team. And that has not been the case in the Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts era. Normally, when this schedule comes out, we say, wow, that's a really tough stretch. Those are some short weeks there. I can't believe how they did them dirty with the bye week. This year, I look at the schedule and I don't feel that way at all. I feel like everything is very balanced. There's not a lot of extremely tough stretches. There's no gauntlet of a run like there was in 2023 where you're playing, it feels like 8 championship contenders in a row for 2 straight months. There's no bye week, week 5, and then the rest of the way, you got to stay healthy and stay in it without any sort of rest. There's not a lot of short weeks where it's like, okay, why are we coming back from a Monday night game and suddenly we have this, Sunday at 1 o'clock and then the next week it's Thursday night football. There's really not much of that whatsoever. And when you look at this schedule top down, I think this is a schedule that the Eagles can go on a run with. This is a schedule that could allow the Eagles to be a top seed yet again in the NFC. So my initial takeaway is that the NFL, even though the Eagles technically have a first place schedule, I think the Eagles got a lot of favors from the NFL. Like, just think about it. There really isn't, where is that gauntlet stretch? Where is the really tough stretch of your schedule that's going to really test who you are? I mean, early on, there's, I would say, a 3 to 4 week stretch where it's a challenge. You're playing 3 to 4 playoff teams in a row. Week 3, you're on the road on Monday Night Football against the Chicago Bears. And then you head, and that's in Soldier Field in Chicago. Week 4, you're home again after that against the Los Angeles Rams. Then you head to London to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who won the AFC South last year. And then you come back at home that Sunday at 1 o'clock to play the Carolina Panthers, who won the NFC South. So, that 4-game stretch is, I don't want to say difficult, but you're playing 4 playoff teams in a row. You're on the road against Chicago. You host the Rams. You're in London against Jacksonville, and then you're home against Carolina. And then at the second half of the schedule, the tail end of it, I would say weeks 15 through 18 could be challenging. You've got a home game against Seattle, the reigning Super Bowl champions. Then on Christmas Eve, you host the Houston Texans, which is a top 3 defense in football. And then you have to head to the West Coast after that to take on the San Francisco 49ers in San Fran. And then you wrap up the season with the Giants. Who the hell knows who the Giants are going to be in 2026? I think they'll be better than last year, but I'm not circling that game like, oh, that's going to be a really tough test. We'll see. Maybe Jackson Dart completely breaks out year 2, but I think there's a 3-game stretch at the start of the year and at the end of the year that could be a little bit difficult. Bears, Rams, Jaguars, and then I would say Seahawks, Texans, 49ers. But if you look at the middle of this schedule, that's where the Eagles could go on a 2024, 2022, 2017 kind of run if this scheme works out. If they are really humming, if they're firing on all cylinders on offense without A.J. Brown, this new scheme under Sean Mannion is working. Jalen Hurts is utilizing the middle of the field more. Under center play action has helped revive the run game. Mekhi Lemon looks like the real deal. Same with Eli Stowers. Devontae Smith is having a JSN caliber season. And then, oh, by the way, the defense looks just as elite as it has the last 2 years. I think that middle of the season is prime for the Eagles to go on, one of those classic vintage dominant 7 to 10 game win streaks. Maybe not that, but maybe like a 5 to 6 game complete bender where they are dominating football teams. So early on, I don't think it's terrible. There's a little bit of a challenge in the months of September and October. And then in December, again, you've got Seattle, Houston, San Fran. That could be a little bit difficult, but I mean, there's no weeks here where you're on the road for 3 games in a row. There's no bye week early on. Your bye week is week 10. And I saw this the other day on X yesterday when the schedule came out when it comes to the Eagles' travel time. Listen to this. The Eagles have 2 significant stretches where they're barely going to have to board a plane. From week 6 to week 11, the Eagles won't have to board a plane at all. So for 5 straight weeks, they will not have to get on a plane. From weeks 14 to 18, the Eagles will only have to board a plane for 1 game heading to San Francisco. So, I mean, that's great. And yeah, you have to go to London to play Jacksonville. You're playing on 2 holidays. To me, that's not ideal. I don't love the fact that they have to play on Christmas Eve and on Thanksgiving. You have a lot of standalone games. You have 8 games where there's no other football going on. You're on the national stage. That's a lot of pressure. You have 5 primetime games this year. Obviously, you're going to be a heavily featured football team when you've made the playoffs 8 of the last 9 years. You've made it to 3 Super Bowls in that span. You've won 2 championships. But yeah, like I look at this schedule and I really like it. I think it's very well balanced. There's not a lot of tough stretches. The bye week is in the perfect spot, week 10. Even when you have to go to London against Jacksonville, week 5, October 11th, you then get to be home for 3 of the next 4 weeks. Actually, 3 of the next, let's see, you're home against Carolina after the London game. Then you're home against Dallas. You got to go to DC, which is really not that far, basically a home game. Then you're home against the Giants before a bye week. And then you're home against Pittsburgh. So after that London game, you have 4 home games and a bye week in 5 of 6 weeks. And the only road game you have to go on in that span is a DC trip, which you just get on a bus and you're there in a few hours. So that's really ideal. The NFL helped the Eagles out a lot traveling to Europe. And so, yeah, the end of the year, like Seattle, Houston, San Fran, that's going to be a challenge. But I really like what they did for the Eagles. And my thing has always been with a schedule release. I told Mark Farzetta this on the squad show yesterday. When the schedule first comes out, I always look at the first month and a half of a season, because I think starting off hot in the NFL is so crucial. If you get in a little bit of a hole early on in the year, that gets really tough to pull yourself out of. So I tend to not like the schedule front loaded with legitimate opponents. You know what I mean? Like I don't want Seattle in September and then Houston and then a couple division matchups. Like that to me is something that I don't think really happened. Chicago, LA, Jacksonville is a tough stretch, but I don't know. Like you got Chicago week 3, Jacksonville week 5, and Carolina week 6. Those teams all made the playoffs last year, and 2 of the 3 won a division. But do any of those 3 contenders, quote unquote, really terrify you? No, I think the one game that's like, oh man, that's going to be a beast of a matchup is the Rams game week 4. And oh, by the way, you've beaten the Rams in the last 4 matchups you've had with them since 2023. So I don't feel like the schedule really got front loaded either. That's definitely a tough challenge for 4 games, but I think the Eagles will be favored in most, if not all of those. The Rams will probably be favored week 4, and maybe Chicago's favored on the road, but I think you're favored against Jacksonville in London. I think you're favored against Carolina. I think there's a good chance you're favored in one of those games against Chicago and LA. So that's another big thing for me, is that they didn't really stack the Eagles' plate too heavy early on in the year, because getting off to a fast start, especially when you have a brand new offense and you're learning how to throw the football without A.J. Brown, I think that's crucial to get off on the right foot. But the good thing is, in Eagles history, they tend to have fast starts if they're going to be a playoff team. All right, guys, we'll continue to break down the schedule coming up next. This is the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is presented by Kalshi. The 2026 NFL schedule release is here, and now you can trade every game on Kalshi. Schedule release always sparks debate. Who's overrated, who got a brutal stretch, and which teams are actually playoff contenders. Kalshi lets you trade on those predictions in a live market, from total wins to playoff chances and championship futures. On Kalshi, you can trade on real NFL questions like whether a team is going to make the playoffs or reach a certain win total. As the season outlook changes, you can buy in or out of your position live, and it's available in all 50 states, so it's easy to jump in and follow along with the season. For example, if you think a team's schedule is set up perfectly for a playoff run, now's your time to get in on the action. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position, trade the draft pick, the game, and more on Kalshi. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use our code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. That's Kalshi, Kalshi. Kalshi, trade on anything. Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. And thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our Locked On Eagles Everydayer Club. You're going to get our show ad-free Monday through Friday. Plus, you'll become a member of our Discord channel, Talking Birds, with other Eagles fans and myself. If you're interested, head over to lockedoneagles.supercast.com or lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. The plan is only $5 a month. That's right. Just a couple cups of coffee. If you're interested, lockedoneagles.supercast.com or lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. All right, so last night the Eagles officially released their 2026 schedule. By the way, I did post on YouTube and our other audio platforms that you get the show. I did post my way too early, irresponsible win-loss predictions for the 2026 schedule, so you can find that wherever you subscribe to Locked On Eagles. But overall, my main takeaways, as on today's show we dive deeper into our schedule breakdown, I'm really happy with what the NFL did for the Birds. And as I alluded to in segment 1, there is a stretch there where I'm really circling it as the Eagles could go on a run here and take control of the NFC, not just the NFC East, but the NFC. If you see here on our screen for our YouTube viewers, that middle of the schedule. So I'm looking at week 6 through week 14. That is when I feel like the Eagles could rip off a big time win streak. So you're going to be home against Carolina, home against Dallas, away against DC, home against the Giants. Then you have a bye week. Then you host the Steelers. You're on the road against Dallas and Arizona, and then you play the Colts. I feel like the Eagles, you could make the argument they're the best team in all of those matchups. And in that span, you have 5 home games and a bye week. You have a home game, you go home by home. Then you head to Dallas for a Thanksgiving game, but then you take out the Cardinals, who I think are going to be terrible this year, even though it's a West Coast trip, and maybe at that point that's a trap game, but the Cardinals are going to be tanking for a 2027 quarterback class prospect. And then you've got the Colts at home. Who knows who the Colts are going to be this year? I feel like that stretch after London, again, that first month of the year is a little bit of a test. The Commanders, week 1 is no pushover. I feel like Cam Ward and the Titans are going to be way more competitive this year. Although I'd love to go beat Brian Dable and show him that maybe he should have been the Eagles OC and the play caller instead of going to Tennessee. But yeah, I mean, like that's a good test in September. You've got Commanders, Titans, Bears, Rams, and Jaguars. Those first 5 games aren't going to be easy, but I don't think it's anything to write home about where you got to be terrified of those teams. And then, like I said, when you get back from London, I just think week 6 to 14, like, you could rip off. You could really start to pull away in the standings. Carolina and Dallas at home. You got to go to DC. That's not that far at all. Then you're home against the Giants. You get a bye week, home against the Steelers. Like you barely have to travel from week 6 to 11. And then you head to Jerry World and Arizona in weeks 12 and 13. But then you get to come home for 3 straight games. Home against the Colts, home against Seattle, home against Houston. So even when you play these good teams, like you get to host Seattle and Houston back to back. You get to host the Rams. You get to host the Panthers. You don't have to go to Jacksonville. I know you probably don't want to go to London, but you're not in Jaguars territory. Like that's not a home game for Jacksonville, even though they're there all the time. That is an NFL melting pot. And I actually think the Eagles fans are going to travel great over to London. So that actually will probably be a home game in a way for the Eagles, kind of like it was when they went to Brazil week 1 back in 2024. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a stretch where you could win, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 games there. If you won like 6 or 7, if you went 6-2 in that stretch, would I be all that surprised? No. I think you could win. I think you could go 7-1 in that stretch if you catch fire. So I think that is what I'm circling on the schedule, is that the meat and potatoes of this schedule, the spine of it, right in the middle, That's where the NFL really helped the Birds. And I think that's good. Like, you look at 2023, the middle of the schedule for like 2 straight months, that's when they were playing contender after contender after contender. And I think it's not the main reason they collapsed that year, but I think it's a big reason. They were absolutely exhausted coming off of that stretch when they were 10-1 and they were winning these games, but they were barely hanging on. Jalen Hurts was kind of pulling you out of these matchups. The defense was struggling, especially in the secondary, and then by the time your schedule did lighten up a little bit, you were shot. You had 2 bad losses in a row against Dallas and San Fran, and you were in your head for the rest of the year. And you're losing to Drew Lock in the Seattle Seahawks. You're losing to the Arizona Cardinals at home. It was bad. And I think the Eagles this year for their schedule were done a lot of favors. And I think that week 10 bye week is, I think, crucial. I really do. Again, you go home by home before the schedule gets a little bit more difficult. Like, that's awesome. I will always now appreciate an early bye for what it did for this team in 2024. Having that week 5 bye week saved your season, and it actually won you a Super Bowl. But I don't want that again. Like, I would hope that the Eagles don't have to make this drastic identity change after the first month of the season where they need that bye week to completely change the scheme and question who they are, even still just at 2-2. So it was very necessary for that season as a whole. And it'll go down as one of the most important moments. That week 5 bye will go down as one of the most important moments in the history of this franchise. But again, I hope that doesn't happen all the time. And I want this team to be able to rest in the middle of the season. It's a grind. And like I said, the Eagles, they have 8 standalone games this year. Like, that's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of nationally televised games. You have 5 primetime games. Like, this team is kind of, in a way, America's team. Listen to this. I saw this from Zach Berman yesterday of The Athletic. The Eagles have 5 scheduled primetime games for the 5th consecutive season. Since 2000, only 2 teams have appeared in more primetime games than the Eagles. They've played the most Monday Night Football games during that span, and they have 2 this season. Like, this is what happens, like I said, when you have been one of the best teams of the last decade. You've won 2 championships in big-time games against the 2 greatest quarterbacks of all time, and Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. There's always drama going on with this football team, but they're always winning as well. This is what happens. But that's why having that middle of the season be a little bit easier. You have that bye week 10. That's going to be crucial. Everything just felt very balanced from a difficulty of opponent standpoint to your road schedule, travel, home games, primetime football, going to Europe. Well done, NFL. I feel like they weren't screwed over finally. It felt like for years, it's like, man, the way they're making this Eagles schedule, they're doing them no favors. And look, the Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni era, they've overcome it, and they are road warriors. They are great on short weeks. Like, they always find a way, this football team. Like, that's just their makeup. That's their DNA. But it's nice to have the NFL finally throw you a bone a little bit. All right, guys, we'll wrap up this Friday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Coming up next, what is the most important game on the schedule? We'll get into it. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are presented by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here. We are actually really close to the conference finals. Tonight, we've got Game 6, Pistons and Cavaliers. The Cavs are up 3-2. We have Game 6 as well between the Spurs and the T-Wolves. The Spurs are up 3-2 in that series. The Knicks have already moved on. Same with the Thunder. Every possession matters now. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel is a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I love using FanDuel during the playoffs. Everything is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. Whether you're looking at player props or just following your favorite stars, it adds another level of excitement to every game. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. And guys, today's show is also sponsored by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Trust me. Keeping track of subscriptions, I suck at that. Spending, I'm a big online shopper. eBay is my bugaboo. Bills, they can get overwhelming fast. That's where Rocket Money comes in. helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot and can help cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going, and you can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized, and it gives you a clear picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, wrapping up this Friday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on all audio platforms and on YouTube as well. We remain a daily show Monday through Friday, even in the dead zone of the offseason. So in May, June, July, you're not going to get more podcasts on any platform than right here at the Locked On Podcast Network, specifically the Locked On Eagles podcast. The Eagles 2026 schedule was released yesterday, though, so we do have kind of a quote-unquote NFL event to talk about. I find it crazy that this is as popular as it is. It just goes to show you the NFL has us by the you-know-whats, and they're never letting go, that they have us right where they want us. They could spoon-feed us anything, and we'll be like, yes, love it. Love football, love the Birds, love the NFL, and I'm one of those guys. I mean, look at me. I'm doing a podcast daily, Monday through Friday, and bonus shows. So I'm doing, at this point, it's like 10 to 12 episodes a week when there's nothing going on. So I am one of these people that love the schedule release. And yesterday, I thought the NFL really did the Eagles a lot of favors with this schedule. Now, I think we all like to schedule certain games for different reasons as, key matchups to look out for. Maybe it's quarterback battles. Like, I always love that personally. I love watching Jalen Hurts against, the NFC East quarterbacks. I love watching him against Dak Prescott and Jaden Daniels. I like watching him against some of the guys he's competed with a lot in the playoffs, like, Brock Purdy, for instance, or Matt Stafford. Maybe you schedule road trips for the Eagles games. Maybe you're somebody that loves to go on the road to watch the Birds. And for me, I'm scheduling that week 2 game in Tennessee, in Nashville. That is a great place to go to a game. Nashville is an awesome city. If you guys are trying to find out what games to go to that aren't in South Philly, week 2 against the Titans, the weather is going to be great. That area by the stadium on the river is awesome. Downtown Nashville is so much fun. My best friend works in country music down there. It's awesome. I'm circling that game. I'm going to it. Join me. I'll buy you a beer. If you're an everydayer, come to Tennessee. We'll watch Eagles Titans together. So maybe you're circling things for that. But there is one game I'm circling for a different reason on this schedule, and it is week 15, that Saturday night game at home against the Seattle Seahawks. That's the game to me that means a lot for multiple reasons. Number one, you just got to exercise some demons with that football team. The Eagles have not lost, or I should say the opposite. They have not beaten the Seattle Seahawks at home or away since 2008. It has been over 15 years. We're almost going on 2 decades where the Eagles have not beat this freaking team. So for that reason alone, I really am circling that Seattle game. I want to beat the Seahawks so bad. They've never been able to beat them in the Russell Wilson era, even when they had Matt Hasselbeck as their quarterback, or was it Charlie Whitehurst back then? I don't know. Now they have Sam Darnold. Like, they've got to get this thing done. They lost to Drew Lock in Seattle back in 2023. That's how ridiculous this curse against this football team has been. But I'm also circling that game because I feel like it's a true litmus test game for the Eagles. The Seattle Seahawks are the reigning Super Bowl champions. I don't know if you knew that, but the Seahawks won it all last year. These are the last 2 Super Bowl champs. And I feel like it's a good litmus test game to show at the end of the year too, like, where is this Eagles team at? Are they ready for a Super Bowl run? Are they a true contender at the top of this loaded conference? Or are they more just a playoff team now? More of a 4 through 7 kind of seed that's going to win the NFC East, but are they still the cream of the crop? Are they there with the Rams? And maybe Seattle's not even there at this point. Maybe last year was kind of like the 2017 Eagles, and maybe Seattle's that team that's fighting for a wild card spot. Maybe they're not the litmus test game that we're thinking right now, but you look at that team on paper, Seattle is loaded on both sides of the ball, and I think it will be. And again, it's a team you just cannot beat. And they have stars. Like Devin Witherspoon's going to be up against Devontae Smith. That's going to be an awesome matchup. You're going to have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean against JSN. Reek Woolen playing his former team. Like they have stars on all three levels of the defense. They have some legit weapons. Rashid Shaheed is coming back. I believe Cooper Kupp is still their third, receiver in the slot. So, Sam Darnold, I feel like kind of like Jalen Hurts, is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in football. It's crazy. Those are actually the only two quarterbacks that have been drafted after Patrick Mahomes that have a Super Bowl ring. In fact, the only new guard quarterbacks, if you will, that have been drafted in the last decade, the only ones that have rings in the NFL right now are Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Sam Darnold. The other guys that have rings are all the old heads. It's Matt Stafford, it's Russell Wilson, it's Aaron Rodgers, it's Joe Flacco. But the only three legit in their prime starters still that have rings already in their career, Jalen, Mahomes, and Darnold. So that's another cool challenge. I feel like it's two very underrated quarterbacks. It's a Saturday night game, Saturday at 5:00, if you will, nationally televised. A lot of people are going to be watching that game. Like I said, it's two of the best teams in the NFC. It's the last two Super Bowl champions. It's two of the best rosters, top down, in the entire NFL, not just in the NFC, but the entire NFL. So for me personally, I'm circling Eagles Seahawks as maybe the most important game on the 2026 schedule. Let me know what you think. Hit us up on X at Locked On Birds. That's going to do it for today's edition of the show. Until our bonus show, thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Thanks as always for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.